Okay, g'day all. Before I get into this clip, I wanted to explain to you what was involved and why the outcome is that all you see me do is remove the exhaust, but I don't install the new exhaust. So what happened was, this is something that everyone who has a Ford, Holden, whatever, that their cars are pride and joy, that you should pay attention to, because this is what happened to me. I lent my car to my sister about 2 years ago, and she had that car for almost a year. During that time, one of the rego inspections, they said that she needed a new exhaust. So you can see that there's a section in this clip that the middle part of the exhaust has been replaced at some point or other. That was what she did. The problem is, when they did the exhaust, they did something else, which was very upsetting to me. So I bought the car, when I bought the car, I bought it when I was 2 years old, so I've had the car for 20 years, and I bought it with independent rear suspension. I looked online for a Redback 2.5-inch exhaust, found what I want, ordered it for independent rear suspension. It arrived, happy days. I removed the old exhaust after recording what it sounded like, and then I went into installing the Redback system, and I couldn't get it to fit. And I was like, why won't this fit? And that was then when I realized or noticed that I have a rear solid axle. I was beside myself. I was thinking, I don't remember having a diff under my car. I remember having independent rear suspension. I then called Ford with my chassis number and said, was my car manufactured with IRS or solid diff? And they said to me, your car has the independent rear suspension. And I told them, well, not anymore. I've now got a solid axle. And the bloke I spoke to at Ford said, that's not uncommon. Many Falcons come in that had independent rear suspension, but when they come in for a service, they've been swapped over to a solid axle. What he explained to me was, independent rear suspension is better for racing, drifting and drag races, and it's not surprising that if you take your car into a mechanic and you get it back and it's got a solid axle, it's because the independent rear suspension is so expensive that they swap me out. And that's the only time I didn't work on the car, is when my sister had it and she had the exhaust done. So it must have been them mechanics that did it. The problem is, you can't go back to the mechanic now and say you did this, because I've had the car back now for 2 years before I realised I no longer have independent rear suspension. But when you look under the car, you can see marks of where the handbrake used to be for an independent rear suspension setup. There's lots of marks under there where you can see there's an old system, and those marks wouldn't exist if that system originally wasn't there. So I'm stuck with a solid axle now. So that's why this clip only shows to the point where I've removed the exhaust. I've put them side by side to try and work out why I can't fit the new exhaust, and I've ended up having to go and pay an extra $850 to the bloke down the road to make part of the Redback system still fit with the exhaust headers. But most of the exhaust has been changed. It's no longer Redback, but it's still a 2.5-inch system. The first time I had the car, it was too loud with just one Hotdog, so I took it back, paid another $150, and he put on a second Hotdog, and it's a little bit quieter, but you get to hear what it sounds like. So I just wanted to explain that to you before getting into the footage. If you just came here to hear what the exhaust sounds like before and after, you can skip through to the end. I've got just a quick short clip there of what it sounded like before with one Hotdog and with 2 Hotdogs. If you're interested in finding out where the mounts were and everything that I had to remove the old exhaust, then watch through the clip. A lot of this is going to be voiceover. At the time I'm recording the footage, next door was playing a lot of music, and I don't want to be done for copyright, so there might be some parts where you actually hear me talking. If the music was too loud, then I'll be doing a voiceover. Anyway, I appreciate you all for being here to watch my clip, and we'll get into it. What I'm doing in the beginning of this here is just checking out what's involved before I start pulling things apart. Now, I could tell straight away that I'd have to remove the O2 sensor and the steering arm, but note to self, put the steering in lock first before you take it off. Don't leave the key in the ignition, because then the steering wheel can turn around and you end up breaking the clock ribbon like I did. There's already a clip about repairing my clock ribbon because of that mistake. So to avoid making that mistake, tie your steering wheel off with a bit of rope if you have to, or put it into lock position before you take that steering arm off, so you can avoid any unnecessary damage. Obviously I'm under the car right now. I'm just checking out where all the mounts are. You can see this mount up here when the camera moves to it. that the mount is stressed. That obviously is not an original mount, so that's again from the IRS that used to be in here. The exhaust has been forced to fit, and there's another mount further back that's also under a lot of stress. So basically there's only one mount there that I can remove that's standard, as looks good. The other two just look like they're pushed into position. The muffler box there, you can see there's just two bolts that need to be removed from there, and the clamp to drop the exhaust from there. And you've got that mount. You got this mount here. So just a quick look over from the back to the front there, and you can see that this front mount is holding on, so that needs to come off. This one here, but it's bolted to the catalytic converter there. So first of all, I'm just going to give these nuts and bolts a good soaking of RP7. Let that penetrate so it's nice and easy to take off. I'm going to work my way from the back of the exhaust to the front. And safety first, I got the car on stands and on the jacks, just to make sure she's not going to move, she's not going to come down. Now I had to cut that mount there to get it off, it was just too tight on there. Other part of the exhaust I had to break away because that was just not going to come off. You can see here that part of the tailpipe is still in the muffler box there. That's not going to be in the way. I'll be able to undo the mount at the back, undo the mount at the front, and then drop that exhaust completely out of there. Okay, so you can see I couldn't get this tailpipe off because she's really badly rusted there, and had to cut this part off that holds the mount on because the exhaust is just too soft that every time I try to do anything with it, it was the pipe was just flexing and it's just making it impossible to get off. So now that part's off, now I'll do the cat. Okay, so I've got the reservoir just tucked over there like that. That was easy enough without having to drain systems or anything like that. So moved out of the way. I've got my O2 sensor out of the way. I've taken the steering arm off just for easier access in here, and I've just got two nuts under there to drop that cat, and we'll get this manifold off. Yeah, cat's off and the manifold heat shield's off. Okay, so we've got a split manifold here. I don't know what the purpose of that is, but more interested in knowing, does anybody know what this mount here was for? It's never really played a part of anything other than being a spacer for a longer bolt, but that's not really what the purpose of that is for. So yeah, if someone can enlighten me, I'll put it back on if it fits, just for the hell of it. But yeah, it doesn't really serve a purpose for what's in my car. Okay, so I got all the bolts out now. Now it makes no sense as well why this particular bolt here, out of all of them, is the longest. So I might put a washer behind that to bring back that a little bit. Must have been for some idea for a mount or something to go behind there, but I don't have a mount. This was a longer bolt, and when I put it back together, I've got to clean up all those threads. I may or may not pay attention to that one bolt, so I'll just feel better about making it go in as far as the rest of them. I mean, I could put this bolt exactly back exactly where it is, but even still, being that little bit longer, I think I'll put a washer in it just to fix that up. Anyway, the manifold's ready to come off. Just got that one bolt there I left in, just partly threaded in still, just to hold the manifold in place while I was undoing the rest of the bolts. And now I can just grab that, undo that bolt, and bring her out. Okay, so that's the whole system out, part of the new system just there. So I've got it out in the shade so it doesn't get too hot. This is the gasket that came out, and never really noticed it, but had a bit of an exhaust leak happening in the front there. The rest of them are okay, but in saying that, when I was removing the bolts, the ones at the back were the tight ones, and the ones at the front were effortless to get out. It was like they were already loose. So probably wouldn't have hurt to have a retension at some point in its life. But anyway, that's out, so ahead with the new. So I'm just going over all the threads for these exhaust bolts. They're an M10 1.5mm thread. Just like some of them look like they've been threaded, and I don't know why the exhaust manifold's never been off before, so whatever reason why that looks like that. I would be the only one who's ever worked on this car, and that makes no sense why that one looks threaded. Anyway, probably just got damage like that from the manifold, I guess, on the way out. So I'm just gonna re-tap all these threads on the bolts and on the head so they all go in nice and smoothly, and I'll also put a bit of grease just on the tips just to help them go in a little bit easier, and we'll get this manifold gone. And while I'm at it, while I've got the exhaust out of the way, I thought I'd have a look at this seal down the bottom here, because it's been allowing air past there. I can hear engine noises past there for, well, years now, and I've just figured, oh well, you know, it's not really causing any trouble, I'll just leave it alone. But since I've got the exhaust out, I can have a good look on the other side, and I saw that I can push it in, and when I was pushing it from the other side, I noticed the arm also slid up. So then I thought, okay, so I have a look inside here, and that 10mm bolt was loose. So even though the arm can't slip out, because that allowed the arm to drop out a little bit, the seal came out, and it's allowed the noise and air to come through there. So glad that I found that. I'll just show you from the other side. So you can see there, this seal just here, given it, because I had got the arm loose, I've just given it a good push, and it's pushed that seal back into place. I've just rested it back onto there for temporarily while I tighten that back up. Now I can take this back off, and we're ready to put that manifold in. See, also all the threads are all nicely cleaned up now, so we're ready to go. So you can see the exhaust here side by side, the old one and the Redback system. I was struggling with it, not being able to work out why I couldn't fit it, and I had to put them side by side when I realised, hang on, I bought my exhaust for independent rear suspension, knowing that my car had independent rear suspension, to only find out that the exhaust that I took off was obviously over a solid axle, and the new exhaust I got won't fit that system. This is footage I took that night. I thought I'd just chuck it in there so you can see side by side how different they are. The first part mounted up, the middle section I should say, so I was able to drive to the mechanic with that part on without sounding like a really loud truck, so I could get the exhaust fixed up. And so I've got the extractors on here, and I put the original cover back over the top. I painted it the same colour because why not? And I'll put this heat shield back on because it's got the sensor cables and so forth here that is subject to heat from the exhaust, so I wanted that cover back on over the extractors. And it doesn't bolt all the way properly, like there's bolt missing there and bolt missing there. They would go into the original manifold, but you know, that's good enough. I've had to get longer bolts for the exhaust because the original manifold was only about 5mm thick on the section here, on the manifold, and because this is 10mm, the original bolts would only go in so far, but you could just feel it when you're tightening. It's like, nah, something doesn't feel right there. So I went and got bolts that were longer and they're high tensile, just so I've got the same depth of thread going back in as what it was originally. So that being said, so it's coming down to the fast flow cat here now, so it's still Redback system there, and that's how it bolts up when you first buy it. And the exhaust place where I got it from, where I ended up getting it all sorted out and fixed up, was he replaced, well, he put on a stainless steel system, not with this dog though,
and that goes right through. You got your muffler there, and we'll go and have a look at the tailpipe in a second. Not the best welds in the world. It's kind of like a double whammy, ain't it? Not the best welds, but they're okay. Like, for somebody in that profession, I would have expected better welds, but hey, if it works, it works. So we'll look at the back of the system now. I'll show you that. Okay, so the tailpipe I asked for to be added on because I didn't want just a black tailpipe. Then you got your Redback Hotdog at the back, which comes around there, and I'll give you to listen to it, and you can decide. Like before, I've actually recorded the video. I've already recorded that footage for before and after with that other dog being put on, so you can judge for yourself whether it made a difference or not from that extra dog being put on. Anyway, I'll let the before and after footage of that extra dog being put on, and I'll leave it as this. I'm like, it's not a bad system. It's a bit loud for my liking, but anyhow, till next time. Cheers, guys.